frankly, if there's any superpower I have, it's in some ways to be in front of a group and show my vulnerability.
Hello, welcome back. You've just seen and heard the wonderful James Doty. We had him as a guest on our seminar, and he was talking about compassion, about his book, about how his book, got translated in so many languages. Even Korean pop bands have made a whole album dedicated on his book. But we were also talking about, when things break in life. We were talking about Kintsugi, and there's another video about Kintsugi on my channel. And we also talked about mindfulness and how to put mindfulness, let's say, into action without, constantly asking yourself, am I doing this right here? So if you are starting with mindfulness practices, or if you're trying to bring it into your team, your organization, maybe this talk can help you a little bit. I hope it will enable you to approach mindfulness practices a little bit more in, let's say, a relaxed kind of way. So for a lot of us, we are practicing mindfulness with apps these days. Or maybe you're watching some videos here on YouTube. There are great inspirations here. There are great meditations. There are meditations with music, with nature, like everything. You can just look it up yourself, and whatever you enjoy, you can follow that. I'm trained in a program called Search Inside Yourself, which originally was developed at Google. And it's a program around emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and neuroscience. It teaches around self-awareness, self-management, empathy, compassionate leadership, and all these things, and has great practices. And there are a lot of short practices like micro practices, and there are more extensive practices, whether it's journaling, like expressive writings, creative writings. Yeah, you can maybe hear, I really love the program. And what I noticed that for some people, it's just the first time they kind of are practicing mindfulness with others then in the room. And this reminds me really a lot of times when the first time I visited a church at all. And it was kind of late in my life. I was over 30 years old. And I came into this larger church where there were like hundreds of people. And what was on my mind? The only thought I had on my mind is that I don't want to stand out here. I don't want to be noticed that it's my first time in church because I'm doing everything wrong here. So whenever the people stood up, and they stood up a lot, I tried to stood up just as fast as I can. Whenever they spoke some words, some prayers, I tried to speak as much as I could imagine they are just speaking right now. But in my mind, constantly what's going on is, I don't want to stand out here. I don't want to do anything wrong here. So please let nobody notice I'm here kind of the alien guy who doesn't know a thing about church culture at all. And sometimes it's the same with practicing mindfulness. So I notice a lot of people are constantly worrying about, am I doing this right here? Am I breathing too slow? Am I breathing too fast? Should I breathe through my nose, through my mouth? Of course, there are a lot of, let's say, prompts that we kind of facilitators and trainers give, like whatever feels natural for you, maybe is the best for you. And I would say, we have a lot of music, live music in our programs. Just follow your own rhythm of breath. And still for a lot of people, because you're in community sometimes, with other people, you still don't want to do it right or wrong. And you're constantly worrying about, am I doing wrong or right? How should we deal with that? And for me, what's really relieving is to have a wider definition on mindfulness. Such a wide definition that you can even, you can be in the shower and just noticing that you're getting calmer and you're enjoying that. And sometimes, our thoughts flow everywhere. And sometimes you can really focus on something. Maybe that's why the best ideas sometimes are born when we take a shower, right? But also like really being self-kind, with whatever you do. And I think the moment you stop worrying about and asking yourself constantly, like, am I doing this correctly here? You're really starting to get into it. It really starts when you kind of let go of all the thoughts, of all the anxiety, am I doing it right or wrong? And all the kind of questions, am I good at this? When this kind of deeper thought, am I good at this? You can let go of that. And also for me, it helps to have a wider definition, like mindfulness practices can have so many facets and it can kind of play out in so many dimensions. For some of us, it's just taking a walk, maybe in the morning, getting some fresh air. For some of us, it may be like, for me, sometimes with photography, I just notice I'm looking at this beautiful plant. And I do analog photography, so I don't take that much photos. There are only like 10 in my, medium camera. However, this is like, for me, it's like really applied mindfulness in action. And there's no right or wrong in the form. So you could, sit like right now, I could do a mindfulness practice right now with you. Maybe you let me know in the comments if you want to have some videos about that. I could lay down on the sofa. I could take a walk. I could even be with someone, It can be just by preparing a tea. And recently we had this wonderful talk with James Doty, who is a leading neurosurgeon from Harvard. And he has this wonderful book out there called Into the Magic Shop. It's about his life story. It has been translated in many languages. And I know the book has touched many of you because it's such a moving story to hear from him, to hear from his childhood stories, all the challenges he went through, but also the later challenges in the more elderly ages. So here's now Jim Doty, without further ado, talking about, let's say, more relaxed kind of way how to approach mindfulness.
Probably 50% of being compassionate or connected is genetic, and then the other part relates to your environment. We also know that there are different practices. As an example, at the center I run at Stanford, we've developed something called a compassionate cultivation training program, which is an 8-week-long program that allows people, if you will, to increase their compassion or potentiate their compassion. The nature of these concepts and ideas, first of all, can be taught, and the nature of that gives you self-awareness. Now, you mentioned meditation. In some ways, the Compassion Cultivation Program is a meditation program. But frankly, there are a lot of people who cannot meditate. And part of their suffering is anxiety about not being able to meditate, right? So literally, just sitting still with your eyes closed and breathing slowly in and out, and don't get lost in all this BS about, well, you have to take 3 seconds of breath in and then you have to let it out through your mouth and blah, 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 blah. Yes, that can be very helpful. But sometimes just sitting calmly and not thinking about anything and with your eyes closed and just breathing in and out, in and of itself can put you in that state. And we know that in that state, it shifts you to engage your parasympathetic nervous system instead of your sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, of course, is the flight, fight, freeze mode, where you're just trying to survive. And of course, this also gives access to fear, anxiety, stress. And the parasympathetic nervous system, which puts you in the mode of being open, inclusive, creative, productive, having access to your executive control function, which allows you to make much more thoughtful, discerning decisions about things. But you can't beat yourself up by saying, this didn't work for me, it's not possible. And again, especially for anxious people, this only exacerbates their anxiety. Many of those people have an attachment to the outcome of that, right? Which then creates their own suffering. So it becomes counterproductive. So simply sitting and breathing and consciously relaxing your body can be very helpful. And you don't have to think of it as meditation. It's just relaxing. You look at Thich Nhat Hanh as an example, he does this walking meditation. You don't have to be locked into this thing, but it does take practice, and it's not something that happens in a day or a week. It's a culmination of your life experiences, who you interact with, what you read, but it is available. You just can't get lost on thinking that there is a time limit to it, or that there's some expectation about what level you should achieve. All of these things create suffering for each of us. And so just having a calmness, being kind to yourself, breathing, relaxing, can have profound effect. This is, I don't know if some of you have seen this, and maybe this is a bad thing to say. There's actually a YouTube video, and it's called The Baddest Buddhist, I think it's called. And it's AJ Barker, who's a comedian. But he said something along the lines of, he's calling his girlfriend from the ashram, and he says, "Babe, you're not going to believe it. I am so great at this stuff. We had an hour-long meditation, and I did it in 10 minutes." Right? So, this is, we're not in a contest here. We're just trying to be our best selves. And all of us are frail, fragile human beings, and we're doing the best we can, most of us. And that's okay. And it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to be imperfect. And it's okay to cry, and it's okay to show your tears and express your fears. That's what makes us human. And in fact, it's when you hide these things that actually decreases your ability to connect with others.
So what do you think? I think there's so much to learn from this. Thank you, James Doty, again. And from time to time, I do this practice where I ask myself, what need I let to go of? What need I to allow myself to let go of? So where is my attainment and where's my non-attainment? And am I doing any good here, or am I harming myself or even others because I'm so attained to certain goals, objectives? So maybe this is a question. Why are you meditating? Why are you starting with mindfulness practices at all? Why do you want to bring them to your organization? There is nothing bad about introducing these practices to other people, but just think about it and just allow yourself for some answers to come up. Maybe you want to journal right now or something. And what I love about James Doty, obviously he is connecting this to our own ability to show up vulnerable to others. So with letting go of all these tangibles, outcomes, results, and objects, I'm driving this thing, I don't have anything in my hands left. I'm way more vulnerable because I don't have anything to grasp. It's just me. And I really have to rethink, why am I all doing this? Why am I trying to do this in a really, really great way? Why am I doing this in a certain way? Why do I try to make this a competition? It's not about competition, it's about connection, and it's about human connection, right? So let me end this video with a final short story which James shared, and the evening was full of wonderful stories and sharing about his own superpower to be vulnerable in, let's say, every situation, whether he is in front of a lot of people, a lot of important people, but he just shows up as he is, maybe with this non-attainment to certain outcomes and goals, just being who he is. And for just being who he is such a wonderful leading example for me. That's why I want to share this with you.
I was giving a lecture one time, and what almost always happens, at some point I get emotional, my voice will crack, I'll shed a tear. And after one of these meetings, a woman comes up to me. Now, I will preface this by saying, when I do that, that gives everyone in the room permission to cry, right? So this woman comes up to me afterwards, and she said, "I felt so horrible for you up there. it must have been so painful for you. I noticed your voice cracked, you shed a tear, you must have been so embarrassed. And she said, I'm a psychiatrist and a hypnotist. And if you come to me for 3 sessions, I'll get rid of that for you. And I started laughing by saying, frankly, if there's any superpower I have, it's in some ways to be in front of a group and show my vulnerability, because that is who we are. That is authentically who we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I said to her, I said, I've done this a fair amount, and I've never had somebody come up after one of these talks and go, I can't believe you're so weak. You're such a jerk. And who would ever want to talk to you again? Invariably, people come up to you and they'll say, God, I felt the same way and I've had this experience, and can I give you a hug, right? Because people are made to connect with other people. When you show your vulnerability, people care. They want to hold you. They want to make you feel better. And my point is that aspect of that connection, that feeling better, in and of itself creates the environment for you to be calm, self-accepting, and understand you're okay. And that vulnerability in some ways can itself be a meditative practice, in the sense that showing your humanity to another person allows them to love you, accept you, care for you. And in and of itself, when somebody does that for you, it's truly a gift and it calms you down. So that was probably very long-winded. I apologize.